Guys, welcome back to the commentator's desks. You have myself, Lazarus Tyrone, joined with Basilisk. We have End of Life versus Blue Republic. End of Life bringing Navy Scorpion, Raven, Basilisk, Cyclone, Ferox, Hawk, Purifier, Hound, Manicore, Nemesis. And what is Blue Republic bringing?
So Blue Republic have brought 3 battle cruisers. They brought an Astarte, 2 Brutixes, 1 Navy edition. They've brought a Demos, a Rook, and a Blackbird. So they've got some ECM wing there. They've got an Executor for reps, a Confessor, an Ennio, and a Vengeance. They've got quite a tanky low end as well with those 2 assault frigates and the tactical destroyer there.
Yeah, you also looks like the End of Life crew all came in at 20 kilometers from the beacon, so we may see another Tinker setup, kind of like the Tipless Cal we had fight earlier. You used to have the 4 bombers, so you might see a bombing run come off versus the Galente strong team, Blue Republic.
Yeah, if End of Life have seen what Templars Calciff have done and either, adapted what they've done and decided, oh, we're going to do that as well, we like the look of that, let's do that, half an hour later, we got this setup ready, which seems very implausible. I would be very impressed if that is the case, if they hadn't planned this beforehand, because, pulling this strat off without practicing it specifically would be absolutely remarkable. So I would have to assume they've got the same sort of idea with this Tinker setup with the bombs.
Yeah, definitely. I think the big thing's going to be here is what we didn't see from the all-in against Templars is seeing if they can pop those bombers before the bombs actually go off.
Yeah, and I think the Astarte and the Navy Brutix and the Brutix are probably going to be able to deal some damage to those bombers off the bat and hopefully be able to clear them. Whereas it seemed like the other comp, the full DPS comp, seemed to want to rush in a little bit more. So I mean, I would expect this Blue Republic squad to have a better chance at clearing these bombers.
Definitely. I mean, you have the Astarte, Navy Brutix. You have plenty of platforms to fit the links for the info links. We're seeing links being popped now with 8 seconds left on the clock before the match starts.
Yeah, I mean, they've also seen what happens if you don't pay respect to the bombers, so I'm sure it's going to be fresh in their minds that they need to stay well away from any bombs that get launched and be mindful of that right at the start.
Yeah, and in the life, they do have quite a bit of DPS coming out from the Scorpion and Raven, but if it is a Tinker, they are going to have to sacrifice some fitting space for the cap transfers.
Yeah, they've got both teams have got quite sizable attack bars. There's quite a lot of offense going on here, but also the Blue Republic team have a much larger ball bar from that Rook and that Blackbird. And if you're playing a Tinker squad, you're pretty reliant on having locks. As the Brutix from Feb Frezio Dongam is taking significant damage, you're pretty reliant on having locks between your battleships and your logistics, so you can transfer cap. And if you're getting ECM'd and jammed out, that is not going to work, and your Basilisk is going to rapidly run out of cap, and then he's going to die.
I'm not actually seeing any cap transfers coming out between these 3 ships as the Brutix gets evaporated by the DPS from the End of Life side. Manicore is entering armor and he's evaporating as the weapon scrams on him and he's down. Ferox is also slipping out of shields. The Basilisk is not able to keep it alive.
There are now cap transfers coming out from the Scorpion Navy onto the Basilisk, I believe. Yep, that is correct. So it is indeed a sort of pseudo Tinker setup, but maybe not as immobile as some of the other comps we've seen, where the 3 battleships and the Basilisk just sit on top of each other and don't move at all.
Yeah, because you are seeing the Raven boat itself across the field towards the End of Life time, or End of Life, towards the Blue Republic side. The Blackbird of Blue Republic entering low armor. The reps are being applied to the Astarte. Blackbird's not even receiving any reps from the Executor as it's slowly entering structure.
And the Nemesis of End of Life goes down, so that's another bomber they've lost. That's another chunk of their significant DPS. I mean, they've brought 4 bombers. They've already lost 2 of them, so if they lose those 4, they've only got 6 ships left, and that's not going to have a huge amount of DPS that applies well to small things from the 2 battleships.
Yeah, so yeah, they lost Ferox, 2 bombers, about to be 3 bombers. I mean, they're losing a lot of DPS here on the field. The Astarte is holding. The Blackbird did go down for Blue Republic. They're slowly losing their DPS core as the Basilisk is starting to get primaried by these by the Demos and other ships.
Yeah, and as is usually the case when you face up against ECM comps, the more ships you lose, the more oppressive it gets, because all those jams you've got on that Rook and the Blackbird, I mean the Blackbird is dead now, but those jams you've got, as the Rook instantly dies, so this could massively turn the match. The Rook was going to be spamming those jams on that reduced number of ships on the End of Life side, but now that the Rook has just been absolutely melted, it could completely turn this match around.
I mean, so it's down to DPS race now. The Blue Republic does have the Executor still up, so you have the DPS of the Scorpion, Raven, Cyclone, and Hawk, which most likely won't be enough to break these ships. If they can get this Executor down while not losing much, then maybe it could still be a close match, but it's really in the air still.
Yeah, this is definitely now just a DPS race. They need to kill this Executor, and then they need to just melt everything that's on the field. But of course, it's going to take a while with the Demos and the Ennio and the Vengeance with the new assault damage control modules. So those are going to be pretty tricky to kill. So I'd recommend they need to I suppose they need to kill the Navy Brutix first, also probably doing a significant chunk of the damage as well. But this Raven of Ruby Fruit Jungle is going down into low shield now.
Yeah, as soon as he runs out of shield, he's going to instantly pop. It's going to, and then once that Raven goes down, I think that might be the end of it. As this Executor is slowly tanking. I mean, he's getting reps from drones. He's slowly bleeding armor into structure. I think he may live just long enough to make the difference here.
Yeah, his reps are keeping these dudes up, and they're forcing the end of life team to focus him, and it's just wasting time when the end of life just want to get into that DPS race. They want to commit and say, okay, we're going to clear DPS from the field, but when the Executor is still there, they know they're going to lose that race. They have to get rid of him, and the Executor goes down, but they're trading the Raven for it. So they've only got the Navy Scorpion, the Cyclone, and the Hawk left, which is almost certainly not going to be able to deal with the Astarte, Navy Brutix, etc. that remains for the Blue Republic squad.
Yeah, the Raven dies, and the Hawk was already tackled, and he dies very quickly after that. Left on the field is Navy Scorpion and the Cyclone. This match is pretty much done. Blue Republic pulled it out. It was really, really close there for a second. Wow, that Astarte just melting.
Yeah, maybe it's a new trend to not put any tank at all in your command ships. People look at them and think, hey, he's going to have, you know, thousands upon thousands of EHP, and it's going to take ages to kill him. But then, as we saw for the Asher Elias kill mail, he's got polarized guns and no tank at all. So, I mean, I'm not saying this Astarte has polarized guns, but it's possible he's sort of under-tanked under the impression that people aren't going to focus him. And you know, when people start poking him, it actually quite hurts a lot.
So what you're saying is a polarized new meta, maybe?
That is definitely what I am saying. Please, everyone start fitting polarized guns to all of your ships. I will love to play against you.
I am looking at his ship fit, and his guns are not red, so I'm pretty sure they're not polarized.
So as we approach the end of this match, it's just the Navy Scorpion left for end of life. Blue Republic looking fairly convincing. In the middle there, it was pretty close for a minute. The Rook melting may have changed this match, but ultimately I think Blue Republic just had enough of a lead in the DPS race. They just had enough ships left towards the end of this match that they were able to clinch it.
Absolutely. If that Rook would have went down earlier, I mean, they get the Blackbird down pretty quickly. If they could have gotten the Rook shortly after, I think that this match could have gone completely different.
Yeah, absolutely. It's unfortunate for End of Life. I think both teams showed a really, really solid performance. They're both worthy winners had they won End of Life, but unfortunately they will be going down to the losers bracket, and Blue Republic will continue in the winners bracket.
Yep, good fight for both those guys. It looks like the Navy Scorpion is slowly bleeding structure. He's trying his best to get the Navy Briggs down to go with him, but it's not going to be happening as he dies.
Yep, so Blue Republic claim that win, 100 points to 59, and I think with that we're going to send it back to the guys in the studio.
I don't know how much
Hydra.
Is this a question?
I mean,
is this a real question?
I've asked a question for every
I know,
round.
right? Tempest Calcif is so
Yeah,
good.
just
They
skip
have
it.
such tournament pedigree.
Yeah, they're so good, dude. Yeah, skip it and
Look,
move on. Hydra.
Massive Snuffleet.
That's friendly.
Coming in.
That Relax, dude.
Dude, that's
not
okay.
snuff. That's 3 snuff and
Are
an
you
Ardra.
kidding me?
Jesus Christ, are you the last Spartan?
RVB taking that hard-fought victory there over that other team and going forward to the next stage of the winners bracket. Congratulations to them. Any highlights from that match there, Satonia?
Yeah, that was such a brutal DPS race there for a long time. It looked like RVB were losing to begin with when they lost to the Brutix initially to the bomb run from End of Life. But then they sort of clawed their way back. But then it looked like End of Life was sort of taking over again after they killed the Executor, then the Astarte. But the Astarte just hero tanked for so long.
Yeah, he absolutely... Yeah. Hero tanked is the right word to describe it, because he just held on as long as he possibly could, and he's probably the reason that his team actually won, because it was such a close fought match that if he'd gone down earlier, then it could have easily swung the other way. So good job for them. Disappointed we didn't see the bar guest. Bart, what about you?
Yeah, I was hoping to see the what did you call it, the flattle ship, or the flattle, But I think that we were talking earlier. Since it is an MPSI group, you get the gyms that come up, and whoever's in charge of the RVB team this year, they knew their stuff. They made sure not to have anybody MWD in. They killed all the bombers right off the bat. They clearly understood the mechanics of the AT. So hats off to them.
I believe their team captain is Nickel, who is a super experienced guy. We've had him on here before as well. So they've got a good captain who can shepherd his sheep into at least one victory of the tournament. So we have another amazing Alexei Aksan graph porn graph to show you now, which is going to be logistics performance. So let's bring that up on the screen and have a quick look at it. So this is specifically armor, cruiser, frigate, and shield. So looks like armor logistics in general is the way to go, with a lot more picks, about the same amount of wins as the shield logistics. Actually, looking at that there, shield logistics almost never loses. Bart, what do you make of this?
I think that we're seeing is kind of the reemergence of the Tinker. A lot of these teams that have been doing shield logistics, I don't think we've seen very many scimitars, but there's been a lot of basilisks surrounded by battleships cap transferring it. And I'm wondering if maybe teams didn't necessarily prepare to beat Tinkers, because they seem to keep winning. In the last match, I don't think that was a Tinker ship, but the Basilisk did live for, their Basilisk died because it was not being tinkered to. So, combination of both Tinkers being really strong, apparently, at least for this first time, and people knowing that Basilisks are really good.
And so, Tonya, if we compare cruisers to frigates, what's the main advantage of picking, for example, frigate logistics over cruiser logistics, or vice versa?
Well, the frigate logistics, they're harder to ban out because there's a few more of them that you can sort of play around with. You can do Thalia with a Navitas, for example, if the Deacon's banned out. They're really point efficient as well. I believe the Tech 1, the logistic figures are actually only 1 point this year, and the Tech 2 are 3 points. So you could do a Tech 1 and a Tech 1 for only 2 points. Or just bringing 2 Tech 2 is only 6 points, or a mix of 1 Tech 2, 1 Tech 1 is only 4 points. So much cheaper than 10 plus or more for cruiser logistics.
Yeah, we have seen at least one team that I know so far bring only a single logistics frigate, the Volta team bringing just the Talia along with a bunch of rep bots as well. Bart, what do you tell us a little bit about rep bots? Do we see them used a lot? Are they really powerful, or is it sort of a fallacy?
Rep bots are sort of one of the hidden things that people sometimes don't look at. An entire battle cruiser's fleet of rep bots is pretty much in a logistics by itself. So the Volta team, it's like, okay, yes, they only have one logistics frigate, but all of those other ships' logistics rep bots alone was probably about an Oneros' worth of damage or self-rep. So that's why things like smart bombs, bomb runs are so important. I don't think we've necessarily seen too many of them here, besides that really amazing bomb run earlier that just wiped the team out. But maybe later in the tournament, when some of the big teams start going against each other, and a well-placed bomb wiping out an entire rep drone wing is it is game changing. So.
Yeah, so what other kind of E-War type drones perhaps you could consider bringing? So obviously we're on to Tech 1 damage drones this year. We can't bring your Tech 2 hammerheads or warriors and so on, but you can bring all the different E-War drones. So Tony, are any of the E-War drones worth thinking about?
Mostly just ECM drones are the kind that we're going to see. There are some powerful options with the tracking disruptor drones sometimes, and sometimes with the damp drones too. But mostly with the heavy one, the 25 meter cubed one. We've actually seen them a lot in the Even T League, teams fielding one heavy tracking disruptor bot, because it's actually almost as powerful as what an unscripted tracking disruptor, because you can't actually script the targeted modules. Normally you won't see the E-War drones on TQ for that reason. But when you compare unscripted power to the drone, they're actually very close to each other. And yeah, we could see a few tracking disruptor or heavy damp bots, but probably not, probably mostly ECM drones.
Yeah, if you're not bringing ECM drones, it's probably going to be rep bots, I think. Or unless you have one of these absolute all-out damage comps where they just want every single little bit of damage possible when they bring that set of damage bots. But that's probably a bit of a niche edge case. Now, a little interesting stat I'm getting fed here is that so far we've had 112 unique ship picks in this tournament, out of 306 picked ships, and 164 destroyed in total. So about a third of the ships picked have been completely unique, which is which is good. I mean, I guess something that will be making that stat a bit higher than last year is the fact that you have to bring like individually different ships. You can't bring two of one thing, two of the other. Long gone are the days of like triple Dominixes with drones and sentries, and long may they be gone those days. Those were terrible days for the Alliance Tournament. So let's look forward to the next match that we have, and it's going to be Quebec United Legion versus the Bastion. Now, I know I say that I love team names a lot, but I think Quebec United Legion is just a great name.
They got a great logo too to match.
I don't actually know what the logo looks like, so I'm assuming that you will show me afterwards, but right now I don't know what it is. Now, the Bastion, I believe, former or current part of the Imperium?
Current.
Yeah.
Mainly kind of a bit trash tier, should we say?
They were tied for last place. I think they were 54th technically in the Alliance Tournament 15. They lost both of their games, and they didn't bring a flagship this year. So
yeah, they actually went 0-2 last year, as you say, and only destroyed 11 points worth of ships. Yeah. So all they need to do is destroy like one battle cruiser, and they've already beaten their entire performance from last year.
It's called garbage can, not garbage can't. So
exactly.
It's important to have goals.
Yeah, you gotta believe in yourself. It's important. Self-belief. So go on, the Bastion. Believe in yourself, like we mostly don't. Quebec United Legion, on the hand, they're bringing a Vargar as the only Vargar and one of 3 Marauders entered as flagships. What's the big deal about Marauders, Suetonia, in the Alliance Tournament?
We kind of talked about this a bit with the Golem that Brave Collective brought. It can MGD really quickly, and especially if they're opting for an Abyssal shield booster, it can actually potentially tank a lot of DPS. It doesn't have the Bastion, but it is going to be bringing 4 utility highs, and with the shield boost bonus that it gets on the hull, combined with an Abyssal PIF-X type shield booster, for example, it can tank a lot of damage as well.
Yeah, and the Vargar is one of those ships that, if you fit it just right, you can actually run it pretty much completely capless. If you use like ancillary shield reppers or Nozes, for example, you can pretty much perma-run one even with Balgorn newts all over it without losing any damage or any tank, which is a pretty bold way to fit it, but you could do that if you were so bold. So last year they went 1-2. They defeated Revolution, but lost to Volta and Hydra. So it's not unexpected. I mean, those are 2 pretty top-tier teams, especially Volta, to lose to. I mean, I wouldn't be ashamed if I was them losing to that.
Yeah, the team that they beat were, I think, sort of a bad Russian team. But you know what's worse than a bad Russian team? The Bastion. So I think they've got this.
Yeah, I would say, Quebec United Legions, they've been in a ton of tournaments. They've always done very poorly. But they didn't do as bad as the Bastion did. So it's going to be an interesting match. I'm going to say Quebec United Legions probably has a shot at this.
So there's definitely 2 kind of schools of thought for like what makes a good match and what makes a bad match. Obviously, the Gunswarm match we saw later on, that was a great match because it was tight, it was exciting, everyone loved it. But sometimes if you get 2 really good teams playing each other, you know it's going to be a good match because they're both going to be operating at peak personal performance. If you get a good team playing against a trash team, it's usually a bit of a cakewalk and it's not that interesting. But then on the other side, if you get 2 trash tier teams coming up against each other, then you never know what's going to happen. Because sometimes like a trash tier team totally surprises a good tier team because they bring something completely unexpected that no one knows what to do because it shouldn't work and everyone just gets flustered. So we could see 2 fairly clowny things being brought. Do you think we'll see that, or do you think these teams are going to bring something a bit more standard, Suetonia?
I don't know. I think Quebec, they really like Fleet Typhoons for some reason. I think they always bring them. I think they actually had a flagship Fleet Typhoon last year, even amongst all the Balgons. Or maybe that was AT14, I'm not too sure. But
what were you, Bart? Anything to add to that one?
I'm just remembering the match a year or 2 ago where everyone was anchored up and then they collectively boundaried because they were all anchored. And I'm wondering if we're going to see something similar today where they're kind of like, yeah, we know how to PvP&E. We anchor up and then we wander off the grid. And so I'm just kind of thinking like those are some of the most entertaining matches to watch where you just are like, oh, look what just happened. That's ridiculous. So I'm kind of I think we're going to see some weird stuff.
Yeah, although we should mention the Imperium and Legacy have actually been doing really well today. The Brave Collective beat the Chaos Fury. Mm-hmm. We just saw the Initiative win, and we saw Goonswarm beat Lumpy. So so far the Imperium are doing pretty well. So I mean, maybe Bastion can carry that on, or
well, let's not get too hopeful. Now, I just want to take a quick moment to shout out to our friends at the EVE Manchester meet. They are, just wave to them now. In fact, we can see them now, I believe, on the stream. They are watching us live. There they are. Well, I believe that's a photo of them from earlier on. But if you move your head kind of fast, it looks like it could be live. But yeah, they're watching us on the stream. So hello, EVE Manchester. I hope you guys are having a great time. Hope you get some pause fuel on the go. If you don't, then you definitely should. Not that we encourage irresponsible alcohol consumption, of course. Now, I have heard that there's been so far 3 boundary violations in this tournament. Bart, is that simply because, I mean, we haven't seen Pandemic Legion play yet, so they haven't had a chance to boundary, but everyone's staying really well within the arena this time. I mean, only 3.
Well, something different this year. I'm not sure if it's been shown, but there's actually a Citadel ring in the arena that shows where the boundary is. So you can visually see the location of the boundary this year, which is way different from it ever has been. The boundary's at about 125 kilometers, which means, you know, if you're kind of too busy focusing on your ship and you're kiting really hard, you might wander off of it. This year, there's a secondary sort of cautionary visual ring that says, hey, don't cross this or your ship will explode. So I'm wondering if that might be what's going on. I know that there's a couple people that are like, you know, what the heck, CCP? But I think it's actually kind of a not terrible change. And at least as a viewer, you can watch and see, oh, he's really close, as opposed to just having to hope your commentators say, oh yeah, he's getting real close. Now I can actually see like, oh, he was like, I think we had one of the battleships was like 3 kilometers off of it today, so he barely turned in time.
yeah. Alternatively, Pandemic Legion is dead according to Reddit. So maybe there's less reason to boundary violate to get into Pandemic Legion.
There you go.
And there you go. I mean, it is a kind of a stealth buff to teams like Pandemic Legion, who just habitually violate that boundary all the time. Just every single time you turn around, there's one of them flying straight towards it. You're just like, come back, don't do it. And off they go again. So now, the next match, maybe we should talk about it and actually start doing some predictions. So I'm going to go around the horn. I think I know where we're going to go for this one.
Conifers.
Quebec United Legion or the Bastion. Bart.
Quebec United Legion.
The Quebec United Legion.
And I am going to also go for Quebec United Legion because, as we have discussed, the Bastion is trash. And now we go to the arena and find out why.